we'll start the questioning portion. We have excused Ms. Hartling, but we will continue now with the questioning part, and we will start with the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Heiss, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank each of you for being here. And your stories are extremely moving, and our hearts go out to you. I spoke yesterday with the Sheriff of Gwinnett County, which is the second most, is number 2 in terms of criminal aliens being dropped off, second only to Harris County, Texas. And he heads law enforcement, of course, in the county. In fact, he informed me that, as I just mentioned, that it's number 2. Chief Martin, as a 40-year veteran of law enforcement, I'm hoping you might be able to shed some light on some of the questions from your own experience, your knowledge. When an illegal alien is released, are you notified?
No, sir.
By anyone?
We are not notified by anyone.
Okay, so we heard testimony this morning that ICE notifies the states of all those who are released, and then that information filters down. And you're saying that that is not the case?
We do not receive any direct communication from ICE. The only way we would know if somebody was released is if, what they talked about earlier, the victim would be notified, and if they filled out a form, then the local sheriff's department is supposed to notify us if they're released so that we can talk to the victim.
Okay, so the law enforcement notification system, is it working?
No, sir.
What is it doing? If it's not working, what is the value, if any?
Well, I have to take you back years ago when INS or ICE used to have their agents in all the county jails. I think by reason, I'd like to preface my remarks by saying that most municipal police departments don't hold their prisoners at the police departments. They book them into the county jails, so the sheriffs would have the authority to keep them. Now, Santa Maria, we arrested 6,000 people last year, and we would keep them, we would book them into our custody, and then within about 6 to 8 hours, we would transfer them to the sheriff's department. And what we do at that point is we do fill out a pretrial service, and about 3/4 at the bottom of the page, it says, does the police officer request an immigration review? And in the case of Victor Martinez, we checked yes. So that's about the only time that we have the ability to communicate with ICE to have a review done. Now that the ICE does not have officers in the county jails full-time, they just show up in the morning, they'll look at the scrolls or the gate book, if you will. But that really doesn't serve any purpose because many times they'll bail out the night before. So it's not working.
Is it true that when a criminal alien is released from prison on parole, that officers, local law enforcement, have to be assigned to check on them?
No, we're not assigned to check on them at all. In fact, when they're released from either the county jail or, say, a state prison, they're taken by ICE to a processing center and then down to Los Angeles where they're supposed to be released. They never release them from the prisons. They always do it down in Los Angeles.
So how does the parole work? I mean, does the state assign someone to watch over them?
Well, pretty much the state of California has gotten rid of almost all of their parole. It's all become localized for the probation department, which is really not equipped to deal with it. So the state has gotten rid of their funding for parole and pushed it down to the local level.
But you're saying local level is not handling it?
No, we're not being notified of any of it.
So what's happening to these people? There's no parole, no accountability, no, they're not watched at all?
I think if they're watched, it's in our county, in Santa Barbara County, it'd be by the local probation department.
Okay, so how do they get involved? Who is, at what point, in other words, when these people are released and put on parole, who's looking after them, and how's that process work?
It would just be a county probation officer who's assigned the case, and he may or she may see them once a month or maybe never.
Okay, well then, who is paying for it? The local parole officers getting, who's paying?
Yeah, Congressman, in the county, it's actually the probation departments, county probation.
So the taxpayers are paying this?
Yes, sir.
All right, so we have ICE that's responsible for releasing these people that should be deported, but in many cases, no one's looking out for them. But when there are cases that are a parole officer, in other words, your local county is having to pick up the tab for the lack of work being done by ICE. Is that a fair assessment?
That would be a fair assessment. And not only that, we're having to pay for all of the investigations that result of us arresting these people. And the local district attorney's office is also having to pay to prosecute. And then once they're found guilty, they have to go to a state prison if it's a state crime. So either the local, the county, or the state is paying for all of that.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate this, but I'm shocked we have a conflict in testimony from what we heard earlier from Ms. Saldana saying that all the states are being notified and it's filtering down, and that obviously is not taking place, at least in your case, and I think this needs some further research and investigation. Thank you. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. We'll recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for holding this hearing. I thank the ranking member as well. Like all of the other members before me, I just want to say to the victims' families, thank you for your courage and your willingness to come forward and try to make sure that this does not happen again. And Mr. Martin and Mr. Burbank, thank you as well for your participation. Ms. Hartling, can I ask you the contact that you have had with any federal law enforcement, or can you tell me if they have been? I'm trying to explore the communication between federal agencies and victims such as yourself and families. Could you tell me a little about that? Has any of that gone on?
No, I have not heard from the federal government or Homeland Security or
ICE?
ICE, nothing, no. But, no, not Congressman, Blumenthal, he had got things rolling pretty good for Casey's case when I saw him in Hartford last year. So I know for a fact that Homeland Security is investigating Jean Jacques' case, my daughter's case.
Right.
And we're just waiting for the report.
Okay. Mr. Martin, could you tell me about the contact that your department has on a regular basis with ICE? Do they inform you when there's, there could be somebody in your jurisdiction that is, under a deportation order, or is there any communication going on between your department?
We do have some limited communication with ICE. Recently, Homeland Security did build an ICE facility in Santa Maria, and it was...
And you're north of L.A., between L.A. and...
Yeah, we're between Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Okay, yeah.
However, it is not a detention center. It is simply a processing center. So when they go, and I'm referring to ICE, when they pick up people maybe who have done their time in a state prison or a county jail, they will take them to that processing center for a few hours and then by van take them down to either Oxnard or to Los Angeles. So the center is there, but it's only open during the day, and it's just simply a processing center.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
And tell me a little bit, I know in some of your testimony, there's a description of decriminalization of possession of heroin.
Yes.
Meth, others. How has that played into your ability to do your job in this respect?
All across California, it has increased property crimes over 20%. So we're seeing an increase there. We're seeing an increase in homelessness. And many of these, some of these people are illegal aliens who are living on the streets. So when they passed that law, Prop 47, it really took our ability away to force them into a court or to force them even into rehabilitation or probation.
I see. All right. Well, again, Ms. Hartling, Mr. Root, very sorry for your Mr. Root, do you have anything else you want to add to that in terms of any contact with ICE or federal authorities, or their inability or unwillingness to do so?
I had one gentleman from ICE when we were dealing with the Omaha Fugitive Task Force by the name of Jake, and he was 100% great, you know, trying to give me some information. He had if they catch this killer of my daughter, the sheet where if they tell her where he has hearings, that type of stuff. And he was going to hand carry it out and have me fill it out. And whoever his superior is did not want that to happen, and it came in the mail. And I just asked him, I said, doesn't he want to deal with me? You know, they dropped the ball again.
Yeah.
And then probably about a month later, I'm trying to get some answers. I had some contact numbers from Jake up to the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and a couple of his supervisors called back, and basically it was just general information about the same thing as Sarah Sedania. And then 2 days before I came here, Sarah's advisor had called, said she wanted to reach out to me. I told him I wasn't interested, you know, and a day or two later, I wanted to know after the testimony, and I said, no. I mean, what part of no don't you get? No means no.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. I see my time has expired. Again, I thank the witnesses.
Thank you.
I yield back.
Thank you. We'll go to the gentleman now from Florida, Mr. DeSantis, the chairman of the Subcommittee on National Security. We'll recognize him for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the witnesses. You have my sympathies. This is just a terrible thing. And the thing is what really gets me, it was preventable. Had our government simply done its job, its core duties, you guys would have your loved ones here today. And I appreciated, Ms. Hartling, in your testimony pointing out that this is happening across our country. And I was in law enforcement at the time as a prosecutor, and if it's just some random American commits a crime, we want to prevent it. But when you have somebody in custody and you release them, whether they're early released as a criminal in the normal justice system, or here, in this case, people who are here illegally and don't have a right to be here and have committed crimes, you are putting the public at risk. And so it's just very, very frustrating. And I was disappointed in Director Saldana trying to say this is just political banter. It's not political banter. These are lives that are at stake, and this is a government that's not fulfilling its duty. What was your view, Ms. Hartling? I mean, when you hear that being dismissed as political banter, how did that make you feel?
I couldn't believe it. Let's put it that way. I found it hard to believe that that came up.
Mr. Root, how did you feel about that?
I don't know how you can be so incompetent and still keep your job.
Good one.
What about the excuses that you hear? Well, we got a lot of factors to consider, or this or that. How does that make you feel?
That's the worst part, because I know in my heart and my family and everybody that loved Casey that I forgot where I was going with this. What was your question again?
Well, just when you hear the different excuses about why we can't do this,
Oh,
or this,
yeah,
or we have to release people, how does that make you feel?
That's just that's the first time I said Casey was killed last June. When I heard that he was an illegal alien and he was supposed to be deported 3 times, I said to myself, I said out loud, I want to make it to Washington, D.C. one day. And I did, and I'm very happy about that, because it is, I don't see anything happening, any changes happening, you know, with our deportation rules and enforcement of them. You know, so this doesn't happen. I mean, he was supposed to be deported 3 times, and he got let go the same day. The last time, before he killed Casey, he was let go the day he got out of prison, and ICE had him and let him go that exact same day. So it's very frustrating.
How about you, Mr. Root?
Well, several times I've seen her hold the book up. I think, you know, it comes down to common sense, you know? I mean, in my case, you got a homicide. You gonna let that person go with priors? Are you nuts? Just common sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that showing a statute book that says these are mandatory removals does not then mean anything not in there means you should remove them. You still have the authority, or that you should let them go. You still have the authority to hold people, and when the public safety is at risk. And the frustrating thing is that and maybe we do need to do some reform in the Congress, but a lot of this, there are tools available right now that the executive branch isn't using. I mean, if some of these countries aren't taking these folks who've committed crimes, we have things that we can do through the State Department. They've never attempted that one time, not once.
Right.
And so basically, we're going to continue to see, and the list of criminal offenses that you see, then this is what ICE gives us. And it's really startling to see the type of things. So these are all, in every instance, people that are not here lawfully. And you have sex assault, kidnapping, homicide, arson. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible list, and I feel for you. We on the committee, on the subcommittee, on the full, we think it's a very important issue. We're going to continue to do what we can do. If that means legislative changes, we need to do it. But the executive branch has got to take this seriously. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. We'll now recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Cartwright, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Root, thank you for your testimony. And
You bet.
I did want to follow up with you because we were talking about your daughter's case earlier. And I didn't realize that you're passing a petition against the judge who set the bail so low.
Yes, sir.
For the killer. And what I read from news reports, and I want to get your take on it because you can't always trust the news. It said that the prosecuting attorney, the Douglas County attorney, admitted that it could have been handled better, and that basically we were dealing with an offender who had committed previous offenses and who had skipped out on court appearances on previous occasions. Am I getting that right?
That is correct. I believe he was going the wrong direction on a street before. I think he didn't have a child seat belted in, and a couple other, he had 2 other times where he was supposed to show up for court and he did not.
So my colleague...
Prior to my daughter's death.
Right. Right. And my colleague, Mr. Gowdy, pointed out, and he was a prosecutor for many years, is there's really only 2 issues in front of a judge when you're setting bail is danger to the community and probability of a flight risk. Well, here's a guy that had exhibited not the probability, but the certainty that he would be a flight risk, and then add to that he was an undocumented illegal immigrant. That's like walking into court with a stamp on your forehead that says, I am a flight risk, incarcerate me at a very, very high bail. And so I see, I can see being mad at the judge, but it sounded like the prosecution didn't lay that out, according to the news reports. Were you there for that?
I was not. I mean, I don't know what was communicated. When he got his bond, we were actually burying my daughter, so we didn't go to the pre-trial. I had spoke with Officer Swanson. Both of them, a lot of them officers I dealt with day and night shift daily, and they took it real personal. I mean, they all did their job. To me and my family, whatever you do for your job, whether you're a judge, ICE, whatever you should be accountable for what you do. If I'm a pipe fitter, if I put in pipe, it falls down and kills somebody or it leaks, I don't have a job.
Right.
So from my understanding is they're saying he didn't have all the information, but he didn't ask for it either. But with the name of Eswin Mejia and having a homicide, maybe wouldn't you want to do some legwork? He was in jail for 4 days. You wouldn't do some research on him before you just hurry up and set the bond instead of just running him through?
Right. Do you fault the county attorney for not putting that information in front of the judge?
I would say yes, too. Yes, I mean, it's at all levels, okay. City level, federal level, yes.
Well, again, thank you for being here.
You bet.
Hopefully we do learn something
You
from
bet.
all of this.
The same judge had a bond of $2 million, too. It's just last week when my ex-wife, Michelle, was there. Same judge.
Ms. Hardling, again, thank you as well for being here. The man who killed your daughter unquestionably should have been deported. Mm-hmm. That is why ICE put him on the deportation list, but as we know, that didn't happen. And you deserve an answer as to why it didn't happen.
I do.
November 24 last year, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, and Representative Courtney, who you heard from here today, wrote a letter to the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General. There are inspectors general that serve as watchdogs over federal agencies, asking for an investigation. And in that letter, the members wrote, and I quote, "It appears that ICE could and should have taken simple additional steps that might have resulted in Jacques being repatriated and therefore never given the opportunity to murder Casey Chadwick." Ms. Hartling, I assume that you support that letter.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And on January 12, the Inspector General sent a memo to ICE announcing that they had agreed to this request and were initiating the investigation. Were you aware of that?
I knew that the investigation is still ongoing.
Okay. So since then, we on the committee have obtained some additional details about your case, and the information indicates that Haitian officials repeatedly said they would accept Mr. Jacques, and then they reversed their decisions over and over again at the last minute. In fact, in one instance, these Haitian officials even approved a manifest that had Mr. Jacques listed to board a flight to Haiti, but they pulled it back at the last minute, and that happened October 10, 2012.
Right.
And you were familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. So the letter from Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, and Representative Courtney also asked the Inspector General to examine what could be done, quote, "to overcome the objections of the Haitian government to the removal of this individual." And I assume you support this part of the investigation as well.
Yes.
Well, again, thank you all for being here, and my time is up, so I have to
Thank
yield
you.
back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Walker, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today is about 6 names, what it boils down to. The name of Marilyn Ferris, Sarah Ray Ann Root, Casey Chadwick, and the people who took their lives, Victor Ramirez, Edwin Mejia, and Jean Jaquez. Now, what I'm impressed with is, Ms. Hartling, Mr. Root, you're willing to relive this situation over and over again. Many questions that I'm sure you don't want politicized or exploited. Yet at the same time, Mr. Root, Ms. Hartling, I've got the same question. What is it that drives you to keep fighting for your lost loved one? Why are you doing this?
Well, if it changes the life of one person, it's worth it. You know, I know if you don't say nothing and do nothing, nothing gets done. You got to be vocal on what you want to do and how you feel. I was brought up that way, and that's how I feel. My whole family's that way.
So whatever the sacrifice is, you're
Doesn't
willing
make
to
a
take on.
difference. What do you live for? Your kids, don't you?
Absolutely.
I have one kid left.
Thank you, Mr.
My only
Root.
daughter.
Ms. Hartling?
Yes, I agree with exactly with what he said. Casey should still be here. There's no doubt about that. She should still be here. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't belong to a group that nobody wants to join. And I'm glad that he's guilty. He was convicted.
Sure.
So that's a big relief. But having to go over it and over it in your head.
Well, I compliment the strength that you guys are exhibiting. Chief Martin, for you to take up the calls. Of course, congratulations, December, as far as being appointed full-time chief there. And a lot of that's due to your many years of experience. I've done a little reading on your background. Very impressed with the background for what you did with the Sheriff's Department and the gang-related stuff, that you've been fighting this fight for a long time. So you've seen it firsthand. I was very impressed that you're willing to call it out what it is. I believe that you made a quote that said, "I think this is a national issue. I think it starts in Washington, D.C. with this administration that we see and their policies. I think you can draw a direct line over to Sacramento with the policies." And you talk about the AB 109, Prop 47, and you made this quote. You said, "And I'm not remiss to say that from Washington, D.C. to Sacramento, there's a blood trail into the bedroom of Marilyn Ferris." You still believe that?
I do, sir.
Can you expound just for a moment why? Why do you feel that way? Why are you that passionate about it?
Well, we on the local level are really feeling the total brunt of all this. We talk about the national, we talk about the state, but, it's every police officer that goes to all these crime scenes. And it just sunk in that this was so, as I stated earlier, preventable. He was arrested 6 times in
over
15
15 months.
In
Yes.
15 months.
Yeah.
And it's catch and release, catch and release. All right, now, if they're misdemeanors, and there are 2 of those are felonies, and they're dumbed down to a misdemeanor, I still think ICE ought to look at those cases and say, okay, he might have, went and said, I'll go ahead and take the misdemeanor plea bargain.
Right.
But I think we ought to look at the original case and what it is if it's a felony.
Of course, yeah. What does it do to the morale of the good men and women that you lead when they see this kind of situation where they are working, putting themselves in danger 6 times out of 15 months? Speak to that if you would, please.
Well, Santa Maria Police Department's a great police department, and hired 40 new police officers in the last 3.5 years. They're dedicated, they come to work every day, and I just think they realize that something needs to be done at a higher level. They all need that.
And you know that by sticking your neck out like this, you're going to get all kinds of innuendos and name-calling and everything else. I commend you for being willing to fight this fight, because I think it's going to make a difference in the future, all of you. I had several questions. I may have time for one. I at least want to get to it for Mr. Burbank. Mr. Burbank, do you agree with the job Director Saldana is doing at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department?
The system is broken on both ends.
Okay, does she have a responsibility of some of the decisions that she's making?
Absolutely.
Okay. My specific question for you is, you previously testified before the House Judiciary Committee in opposition to a bill that would make criminal alien drunk driving deportable. How do you explain that? And I'm not trying to add histrionics to this case today, but how do you explain this to families that shouldn't be to that level of criminal offense?
The criminal offense should be equal under the law. So if you are a citizen, if you are a visitor to the country, or if you are undocumented in the country, they should have the same due process that anyone is entitled to in the United States. And that's what I firmly believe in my job.
But see, that's a flawed argument. I heard that today. He said, listen, aliens don't have as many criminal background or acts as the normal population. My point is, if they wouldn't here to begin with, there'd be no criminal acts from them. Is that not true? Thank you. I yield back. That's the end of my time. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Now I recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cummings.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say we've identified many flaws within the criminal justice system that are not necessarily directly related to immigration status.
Okay. As I said to you, Ms. Hartling, and to you, Mr. Root, I really do thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, you know, the government printing office prints the records of these hearings. And, you know, one of the things that I noticed about myself, since sometimes you can learn stuff about yourself when you go through stuff, is that I never wanted anybody to forget my nephew. You know, I didn't want him to be like a flash, and then it's like he didn't exist. And since a record is being made here, that is a permanent record, I wanted to give you an opportunity to say anything special about your loved ones. Ms. Hartling?
Oh, now?
Yeah, you.
Oh, Casey was a spitfire. Everybody loved her. She was a tiny little thing, and
Was she like you?
yes, she's like me, except she's
How did
not,
I guess?
she's not as tall though. She was very short. I have 2 daughters that are 5'1". That's Casey and my oldest, and my other daughter is 17. She's as tall as me, but all my other 2 daughters are short. So, but Casey wouldn't put up with any wrongdoings or anything. Casey was a fighter, and that's why she had so many defensive wounds on her and everything, because she fought back. And but she was great. We talked every single day. I talked or text. She talked or texted me every single day. If there was a car accident on the highway, because I'm a lousy driver, she'd call me on the phone and to make sure that it wasn't me in the accident every time. I would sometimes I just answer the phone. I'm home, Casey. It wasn't me. So she was just a very caring, loving, 25-year-old beautiful girl with her whole life ahead of her, and now she's gone.
You know, you said something that kind of caught my ear, and you said you after it happened, you wanted to come to Washington.
Yes.
And you said these words. You said it made me happy to be able to come.
Yes.
Can you? Sometimes I think we who sit in these chairs don't realize the significance of these kinds of moments. Can you explain to me why you said that?
Because I felt that I could contribute my story about my daughter and how he was supposed to be deported 3 times, and so ICE and the federal government need to. I wanted to just say what I wanted to say, that it was wrong, and they need to have more steps to take, or whatever they do to detain an illegal alien who did a heinous crime. So he obviously had already done that before Casey. He had already he was acquitted of killing one guy, and he attempted murder the guy's girlfriend. So he was already he was already a criminal. And when he got out of jail, and when I found out that ICE let him go the same exact day, I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I said one of my favorite sayings is that out of pain comes one's passion to do their purpose.
Exactly.
Pain, passion, purpose. Mr. Root, can you tell us about your...
Well, my daughter, she's just a lot like Mrs. Hartling's daughter. She was small, but she was a little spitfire. You always knew where you stood with her, just like my whole family, being vocal. But, she was very loving, very smart, very beautiful, very caring. She was passionate and willing to help people all the time. She was, like I said, she just graduated with a 4.0. And then she worked at Walgreens, too, while she wanted to continue her master's. And then people, need something. She was always willing to help somebody, at the drop of a dime. It's just a good-hearted person, Enjoyed doing a lot of family things, hunting and fishing. She was going to hunt this year with me. She goes, Dad, you're going to be pissed when I shoot one bigger than you. So I bought her a shotgun, and, them aren't in the cards. But, she just was... she was real active in soccer when she was younger. She used to go fishing with me, be on the boat for not catching no fish. She'd want to steer, and just a real joy, We never ever had problems with either one of our kids. It's just, it's a lot to swallow in, but I'll see her again, and, you don't want your kids to die in vain, and you got to speak up for what you believe in. And it's hard to do, but, myself and my family, like I said, feels from the local to the federal level. The ball's been dropped everywhere, and everybody should be held accountable. Until my baby girl gets justice, I'll be here.
There's a song that I love so much. It says, "The time we shared will always be." The time we shared will always be. And, as I listen to you, I think it's very important that we put faces. That's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about them.
That's fine.
To put faces. I mean, people, we get to a point in our nation and in our world where things happen to people, and it's like, it's just collateral damage. It's just like it's not a human being, like a family behind that people mourning, feeling sorrow, and as I say, mourning for things that could have been.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to, I appreciate you all sharing. And again, there are definitely some problems here that we're going to try to solve. And I agree with the other side. I don't think to use the word political banter, I thought that was not appropriate. It's about trying to solve problems and trying to make it so, and I think this would be your aim of being here, trying to make sure this doesn't happen to somebody else's daughter.
Yes, sir.
Or somebody else's cousin or sister or friend or fiance. So, again, I want to thank you all for being here. And when you talk about your daughters, I can tell you when you put the personal side to it, I think it helps us when we're trying to resolve these problems, to just keep in mind, you know, this is for two wonderful, awesome Spitfire, as you said,
They
young
probably
people.
would have been friends.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize myself. Again, I love Elijah Cummings, puts his heart into it and cares, and I think we all do. I don't think this is a partisan issue, but there are public policy issues that we have to deal with. And Mr. Root, I wanted to put up a picture, if it's all right with you, of Sarah. This is your daughter there. How long ago was that picture?
She graduated the 30th of January. She died January 31st. That night, or after graduation during the day, she went out with her mom and my mom's side of the family, and they had something to eat, and I was helping a friend do some work, and I asked if she wanted to have a steak and crab legs with us, but no, she wanted to go celebrate her graduation with a friend. And I had her in the driveway, locked in with my vehicle, and she moved her vehicle. I'm sorry, I moved my vehicle. I was parked behind her, and she parked her vehicle on the street. And she walked back up after parking her vehicle and hugged me and gave me a big old hug, and it was like a death hug, you know. She said, "I can't go nowhere without telling you I love you, Dad." And that's the last time I seen her alive before I identified her.
Well, you know, the strength that you exemplify here is just amazing to me. I've long said that it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things that I think I'm most impressed with. And people wake up and something happens and they don't think they're going to be sitting in this situation, and here you are testifying before Congress. And I want you to know in your heart it does make a difference, and that it's incumbent upon all of us to learn those lessons as clearly and as succinctly as you can. The person that is suspected of committing this, or that committed this murder, what had this person done previously that you, in your mind, justifies deportation?
Well, first of all, he was 16 or 17 when he was, or 15 or 16 was he identified in Arizona, I believe. And he was released to his brother, who was another illegal. You know, to me, they should have been both deported at that time. You're both entering the country illegally. You know, there's two. If he would have been deported, we wouldn't be in this boat right now. And then the traffic offenses he committed where he was going the wrong way and didn't failure to show up for that, I think. And he might have had a couple other, I know he had one where he didn't seatbelt a child in. I mean, I don't have that information right in front of me. I know he had 2 or 3 other times where he was supposed to be in court and he didn't show up. This was prior to the incident with my daughter. And that, you know, with the judge deal, that should have been all public record. I mean, in this day and age, you know, you should be able to push that computer and it should show everything. And prior to releasing him, he was in jail for 4 days, 4 to 5 days. So, you know, they were claiming they didn't know his immigration status, and the county prosecutor didn't, you know, give us this information. And to me, you know, that's, you know, if a guy's in jail for 4 days, it gives you plenty of time to figure it out. You know, you should know in 15 minutes, pretty much all of it. I mean, I don't do legal work, but it's just a common sense issue, you know. And the way his name's spelled, and I'm not trying to be prejudiced, because like I said, my mother was an immigrant. That would probably tell you that he's probably, you know, not, you know, just like Bob Smith or something, you know. You might want to do a background check. Just common sense, you know, not to the point where even where you're a judge and you're supposed to be highly educated to protect the public. To me, you failed.
Yeah, and Mr. Burbank, look, you served the people of Utah for a long period of time. And I may not be able to convince you or change your mind, but I do want to offer another perspective. I want you to be able to offer another perspective, and I want to offer one as well. Because I believe in the principle of restitution. You steal a candy bar, you put it back or you pay for it. You break a window, you pay for it. You're here illegally, you go home. And so I think you do it, for me personally, I think you do the need for some immigration reform, which I agree with. I think we need to fix legal immigration. I think it's broken. I think we're failing those people who are trying to do it legally and lawfully. But we're doing it to the advantage of the people who do break the laws and just blow past the laws of the land. And I think we need to stand more firm as a nation and say we are a nation of laws. And if you break them, there's a consequence to that. And right now, that's what I don't see happening. And that's what I see time and time again, just being dismissed as, well, that wouldn't have really helped. And there are a couple of things that you said that I'd like to ask you about. You said we couldn't deport our way out of this, but for somebody who's committed a serious crime, who's here illegally, remember, they're here illegally, they committed a crime, they're convicted of that crime, why shouldn't they all be deported? Why should we stand for that?
If they've committed a serious crime, I don't think there's a police chief in the nation that's not going to tell you they shouldn't be deported or dealt with appropriately. But we should not move outside the laws or the Constitution in order to obtain that. Now, we have unfortunate circumstances where people fall in a category, but our criminal justice system adjudicates this. Now, if part of that is they are adjudicated and then we fail, I mean, there's no question we've identified today that there's failures in the system.
So would you agree that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement is required by law to have a minimum of 34,000 beds, but they're only in the 30,000 range. That means there's a good, in any time, 2,000 to 4,000 people that should be detained, could be detained, that the Congress funded to be detained, and they don't do that. Now, you don't work for ICE, you don't work for Homeland Security, but can you see the frustration that there are literally thousands of people that are here illegally as criminal aliens and they're not being detained? Not because they haven't been funded, not because it's not the law, just because the Homeland Security folks and the Obama administration decide, no, that's probably not in our best interest. But why is that not in the best interest of the United States of America?
If we have identified individuals, interestingly enough, I did work with ICE in order to come up with those people and to try and make the major city chiefs of the United States say, yes, we should deport those people who have committed serious criminal acts.
Do you think driving under the influence falls to that level?
I think laws such as that fall into the category that they should be adjudicated as they do with someone else. We've identified a shortcoming. Do you realize there are people driving around in this country now that are citizens that have 4 and 5 DUI arrests in the past that we haven't dealt with appropriately either? And so we're looking at a flaw in the system. But I'm asking you,
for somebody who's here illegally and convicted of a DUI, do you believe they should be immediately deported?
A DUI is a Class B misdemeanor in the state of Utah.
I'm asking you, do you?
No, I do not.
So you think somebody who's here illegally, drives under the influence, it's in the best interest of this country to leave them in the United States?
I think it's in the best interest of this country to follow the standard set forth so that you have equal.
I'm asking you what you think the standard should be. I deport all of them. You commit a crime in this country, you're out of here. Guess what? You did jump to the front of the line. That's the deportation line. So why shouldn't we deport that person?
Well, and this is where you and I absolutely disagree, because I think that we have a practice in place in how we adjudicate things, and I think there needs to be some fairness and equity in that system. And when there's not, when we identify people and they have harsher penalties because of the color of their skin or the language they speak.
I never said anything about the color of their skin. That's your words, not mine. I never said that. I said they're here illegally. And that knows no bounds, right? Name a country that doesn't have somebody here illegally. It happens from the entire world. Why shouldn't we deport that person?
One, I don't think we have the capacity to reach that. And then two, this is the same.
So you think it's saving money is more important?
No. But what I'm telling you is, this is no different than tax code. This is a civil penalty. It's not a criminal penalty enforceable in the state of Utah as a crime.
This is where
you can only be detained and deported for this. You cannot be jailed or fined for being in the country undocumented.
And you should be deported. That would solve all the problems. That would solve all the problems right there. My time has expired. We'll now recognize Mr. Grothman of Wisconsin.
Thank you. I'm not going to follow up with Mr. Burbank, but my goodness, kind of incredible how we have people who don't want to enforce their immigration laws. We'll go with Mr. Martin. Chief Martin, could you, just in general, you've been involved in law enforcement for quite a while. When were you first involved in law enforcement in California?
1973.
Okay, so you've seen a lot. Could you describe the difference in the way the immigration laws of this country, say, have been enforced, say, in 1975 and the way it is today?
Well, I can tell you from a perspective in Los Angeles, when I worked the Los Angeles County Jail, we used to have INS agents at the time working inside our jail. So every person that was booked into the Los Angeles County Jail, they were screened by, at that time, INS has now become ICE. So there's a change there. Then I've seen changes just through administrations. You see the differences, 70s into the 80s. And now we see it to the point where it's like I testified earlier, it's like catch and release. It's at the point now where at the local level, it's saturation. And we're having a very difficult time dealing with it in Santa Maria and other places too.
Are you seeing that people who would have been deported 40 years ago today, either due to lack of resources or maybe kind of Mr. Burbank's attitude of, we don't care who comes in this country very much? Do you see a difference in whether somebody would be deported or not 40 years ago compared to today?
Yes, I do. And what we saw in the 70s and 80s was when you would have 1 or 2 convictions, you would normally be deported. Victor Martinez was arrested 6 times in 15 months, and he was never deported, not even on a list to be deported. So therein lies the actual evidence.
Do you get any feeling, and it's to a certain extent a mystery of mine, because in my mind, we are ruining our country. I mean, we've had witnesses up here, not just in this example, but people who represent the Border Patrol, the degree to which, not just this administration, but other administrations as well, don't want to enforce our immigration laws at all, which is, I think, why as a Republican, we're going to get Donald Trump as our nominee, because we had a lot of bad candidates who wouldn't say they'd enforce the immigration laws. But do you ever hear why we don't care to enforce our immigration laws anymore? Is there any speculation you have?
Well, the only thing I hear in California is that we need illegal immigration to work the agriculture area. But that doesn't ring true in Santa Maria. We have many people there who come from different countries under the H-2A laws, and they work there for 6, 7, 8, 9 months and then return. So that argument doesn't seem to really hold water for us.
Okay. Do you feel we ought to do a better job of enforcing our immigration laws?
I'm sorry, sir.
Do you think we ought to do a better job of enforcing our immigration laws?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you care to comment on Chief Burbank's comments before?
Well, the only thing I would say, I would like to share with the committee what happened in Santa Maria just 8 weeks ago. We had an increase in homicides for the past year and a half in Santa Maria. Normally, we only have about 3 homicides a year. Last year, in 21 months, or in 15 months, we had about 21 homicides. 8 weeks ago this day, we undertook an operation that had an impact in these homicides. Along with the FBI, along with ATF, we undertook and we led the investigation. We served search warrants at 12 locations, 8 in Santa Maria, some in Bakersfield, some in Ohio, in other areas, culminating in the arrest of approximately 16 people. All 16 people are illegal aliens from either El Salvador or Honduras, and they were all booked for multiple counts of conspiracy to commit murder, and there are other murders that we believe we will be able to prosecute them for later on. So that was just 8 weeks ago on March 3rd. So yes, I am seeing a huge increase in some of the problems we're having.
It would seem to me common sense that if you have somebody breaking the law to come here, well, there may be wonderful people doing that, proportionately they'd be more likely to break other laws, including maybe the laws against murder. Based on your experience in the last 20 months, do you believe that illegal immigrants in Santa Maria are less likely to commit crimes than the native-born?
Are they less likely?
Right, right.
No, I don't believe that. I think it's proportional. I mean, we have a lot of people. Santa Maria's got a 70% Hispanic population. Half of my police force is Hispanic or African American. All right, so they're seeing it on all levels also. But I don't think that, you know, the illegals are, that when they are here, many of them, the only way they support themselves, they're not working the fields, they're committing crimes, just like Victor Martinez was doing. He didn't have a job. You know, he's hooked on methamphetamines, so he makes his living, or he makes his money by stealing.
That to me makes sense. So you would say in general, and there's this myth out there, I think I saw it in some of the stuff that Chief Burbank said, that the illegal immigrants are less likely to commit crimes. I mean, my experience just talking to people in law enforcement, common sense would tell you, here illegally, more likely to commit crimes. Is that your experience? More likely to commit crimes, you think, people who are here illegally?
No, I don't think, well, let me give you an example. We arrested 500 people for drunk driving. I think it was last year in Santa Maria. Out of the 6,000, 500 were drunk driving cases. I would estimate that about 40% were illegal aliens, and I think they only make up about 20% of our population.
Okay, well, that's kind of shocking.
The gentleman's
That's not
time
even
is
a crime.
expired.
Well, thank you for giving me the extra minute.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Connolly, the gentleman from Virginia, for 5
Thank you.
minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Burbank, I just heard that last statistic, and that's awfully misleading. I mean, if you want to go down that road, what percentage of black American men as a total population, a part of the U.S. population, and what percentage do they constitute in terms of incarcerated adults?
They are incarcerated at a much higher rate.
Much higher rate. What are we to conclude from that? Don't answer. I would suggest respectfully, tread very lightly on what you conclude about that. So the fact that you've got a higher percentage of people who are undocumented, who are arrested in a community that has a lot of undocumented people, I don't know what to conclude from that. There could be good and bad things to be concluded from that, including about policing. I can tell you this, if my police chief were at this table, he would testify that we don't want to essentially federalize our police forces and make them the equivalent of immigration police, because we want the cooperation of the immigrant community, including the undocumented immigrant community, in terms of law enforcement. I can tell you in my community, right across the river, it was because of an undocumented individual we were able to solve a murder by an undocumented individual. We would never have gotten the cooperation of the day laborer community, in this case undocumented, with our police if we had not had a different kind of policy where we differentiated our local law enforcement function from that of immigration and customs and so forth. So just a word of caution about that, and Chief, you're more than welcome to comment on that if you wish.
Thank you, Congressman. I have an excellent relationship with the Hispanic community. We have outreach officers that go out into the fields and speak with them all the time. We do have many undocumented people come forward to report crimes. But the question was, do I see an increase or decrease? I'm not sure the exact numbers, but I think it's proportional, as I said. So we have beat coordinators. We have, like I say, 45% of my officers speak Spanish. So I go to every meeting that I'm invited to. So I agree. We're not supposed to be immigration officers. That's not our job.
Right.
But at the same time, we are feeling the impact of the lack of enforcement at the federal and state level.
I understand that, too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Mr. Burbank, is deportation just the sort of the answer to all of our immigration problems here? Let's really up the game on deportation, and that will solve everything.
I do not believe it's the answer, personally, no.
Really? Why not?
I do not believe it's realistic. And in fact, it is an unfair system in which we don't treat people equally across the board. Then the other thing is border issues and everything else. People come back. We need a system that reforms immigration so individuals can come into the country and work, can come into the country and visit, return home, can come out of the shadows and participate in society. This is not a question of legalization of everybody. This is a question of allowing them to participate so that they understand traffic laws, so that they understand the rules, that they can get the treatment that everyone in society for drug, alcohol, and mental health issues that everyone in society experiences regardless of what their race is or where they may be from.
What is the recidivism rate of deported individuals. I mean, we sometimes act as if deportation is the ultimate answer to a set of problems. But the fact of the matter is, depending on who you are and where you come from, you may illegally enter the United States multiple times, even after having been deported. Is that not correct?
That is correct.
And that is because of why?
I think there is a desire to be in this country, and there are family members, there's many issues, but they do not, studies have shown, conducted by research institutes and universities across the nation, that show that individuals, even in multiple returns, right, are committing crime at a lesser rate.
But even where we've got criminal activity, for example, in Northern Virginia where I live, we've had gang leadership that has been deported back to Central America, only to have them show up again, 4 or 5 months later, and we have to go through the process all over again. So sometimes when we're dealing with criminals, they have a criminal network that also serves to re-inject them, unfortunately, back in this community. And that's a different kind of challenge than simply addressing somebody's status. Would you agree?
Absolutely, and you've just identified the frustration of police chiefs across the nation. The system is broken, and until we reform immigration as a whole, we will not be able to get past some of these loopholes that criminals are finding.
I would just say this, and my final comment, but I think you just put I spent 14 years in local government before coming here, and was chairman of my county, was the equivalent of being a mayor, 1.2 million people. And that is my feeling, that the federal government has in some ways, by overseeing a broken system, has forced localities and local communities to deal with the consequences of this broken system. And sometimes, as certainly our two grieving parents here give witness to, it leads to tragedy. We've got to fix the system. Thank you.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Carter, the gentleman from Georgia, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here. I can only imagine the feelings that you have, and please know that you are in our prayers, and we appreciate your courage for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin, if I could ask you specifically, Victor Martinez Ramirez, he was the illegal alien who killed Air Force veteran Marilyn Ferris. He had been arrested by your police department 6 times in the previous 15 months. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
6 times in the previous 15 months.
Yes, sir.
And it's my understanding he had been released by the Santa Barbara County Jail only 96 hours prior to doing this?
Yes, sir.
Had ICE issued a detainer for this guy?
Not in this particular case. They did provide a detainer in 2014, but that was the only one we knew.
Is your city, Mr. Martin, is your city or Santa Barbara County a sanctuary jurisdiction?
No, sir. The city of Santa Maria is not a sanctuary city, never has been. In fact, I have letters from our city manager, which was authored by our city council, stating specifically they have never voted for at any time in the past or in the present to be a sanctuary city.
Have you ever contacted ICE previously about to request a detainer on someone or on a suspected illegal alien? Have you ever had that experience?
No, sir. What we do is when we arrest someone, the Santa Maria Police Department makes an arrest, we fill out a form that goes with the prisoner to the county jail. Santa Maria Police Department, we don't have a jail for people to put in. We just have a booking processing area. And in this form, we do check the officer, does the officer request an immigration review? And in this particular case for Victor Martinez, we checked yes. So then it would be in the hands of the Sheriff's Department and ICE for them to go down and make the review.
Okay. And you're not sure what happened after that in that particular case?
No, sir.
Okay. Wouldn't you agree that Sheriff, that increased communication between local law enforcement and federal law enforcement would federal law enforcement especially, because obviously they're the ones who are responsible for the immigration enforcement, wouldn't you agree that better communication would obviously benefit everyone in this case?
Yes, sir, I would.
And hopefully keep a tragedy like this from happening again. I mean, obviously, this is obviously not our best work and could qualify as being our worst work. Mr. Chairman, obviously, I'm appalled, as we all are, at what has happened in this particular case and what has happened in many cases like this. And I, especially when you had a veteran who was murdered at the hands of an illegal alien who was in police custody only hours before. Only hours before this person was in police custody. So I want to bring to your attention, Mr. Chairman, other members of the committee, a bill that I have. It's H.R. 4007, the Alerted Act, and it helps to increase communication at all levels of law enforcement, and it ensures that DHS and that ICE are responsive to those inquiries, just like Mr. Martin just indicated, and that is that they will work to make sure that these illegal aliens are indeed checked on and that our immigration laws are enforced. Again, it's H.R. 4007. That's a bill that I'm sponsoring. It's called the Alerted Act. Hopefully, it will improve communication between local law enforcement and between the federal government. That's what we need more of. Again, thank you for being here, and again, our condolences. Thank you so much. We appreciate your courage. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank the gentleman from Georgia. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. And first of all, I want to thank the ranking member for asking you to tell us about Casey and Sarah. And if you can, Mr. Martin, tell us a little bit about Marilyn Ferris. We don't want these people to just be statistics. And I watched as people wipe tears. As a dad of 2 daughters, I can't imagine what you've been through. All of us are very, very grateful for you coming. This has been very helpful. Mr. Root, is it true that Mr. Mejia's bail was less than the cost of Sarah's funeral?
Yes, it is.
Do you know whether or not Mr. Mejia had a driver's license?
He did not.
Do you know whether or not he ever had one?
I do not know that fact. I know there's no insurance. The vehicle that killed my daughter, I'm not even sure the true owner of that vehicle. It's in the Omaha impound lot right now. Mm-hmm. I heard it was from another illegal roofing contractor from Wichita, Kansas. But, they won't let me take it out of there to get it dusted for prints or whatever you want to say. So.
Okay. Mr. Martin, I listened to Mr. Burbank's response to Chairman Chavitz about deporting drunk drivers. And frankly, that didn't go over well with me. But I'm going to ask you, do you think we have enough legal citizens who drive drunk without adding illegal immigrant drunk drivers to that number?
Yes, sir.
Do you think it makes sense when we know that they have a record of drunk driving? And I'd like for you to answer that again. You didn't have your microphone on. I ask you if you think we have enough without adding illegal drunk drivers to that.
Yes, sir, we have enough.
Do you think it makes sense when they're picked up for drunk driving, since they're here illegally, regardless of race, national origin, sex, gender? Does it matter? Since they're here illegally and they're breaking our laws, does it make sense for them to stay here?
No, sir, it does not. I view the vehicle just as I would a pistol.
Mm-hmm. And in this case, in Sarah Root's case, it was just as deadly as a pistol, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Burbank, in your last comments, you seemed to imply that the American taxpayers should pay for substance abuse treatment for people who are here illegally. Is that what you're saying that we need to do as a nation?
I don't believe I said that.
I believe you did.
American taxpayers. I said that we have demonstrated through restorative justice programs in which substance abuse treatment, that is the direction that we bring people out and they do not reoffend. We are more effective than we are with incarceration.
Okay,
What I
but
said.
you said that in the context of illegals. And if they're here legally and they're in these substance abuse programs, you're pretty much saying that we need to invest American taxpayer dollars in providing substance abuse for people who are here illegally. Does that not create another incentive for them to come here illegally?
We have people who exist in this country in all different forms and status.
Listen, you're trying to turn this into something that's not, and I'm not going to let you do it. And the chairman probably pulled me out of the chair, but we're sick of this. You've got 3 people here representing families who've lost loved ones. We know that there was 124 people who are here illegally who've committed murders. Just this month, in my home state of Alabama, they've arrested 3 illegals, 2 Hondurans and a Mexican, who were here to do a home invasion, and one of them said that had the family been there with a firearm, he would have shot them. They were arrested, Mr. Martin, by local police in Oxford, Alabama, who were alert enough to see that they were carrying weapons and arrested them. They had prior convictions as well. One of them was carrying a pistol stolen from Arlington, Texas. One of them had a felony that goes back to 2008. It's insane. It's criminal. And you're sitting next to people who have lost 2 of the most precious things they'll ever lose in their lives. And frankly, I find it offensive.
May I respond?
Yes, you may.
So I sympathize with these individuals. In fact, in the year 2000, my friend and colleague lost his life at the hands of an undocumented immigrant. I would not want that person caught who has never been found. He was held in custody and released. But I would not want that person found at the expense of someone else's constitutional rights or civil rights.
We're not talking about constitutional rights, and I think you have crossed the line in trying to imply that people who are here illegally have the same rights as people who are here legally, who are citizens of the country. And we're not denying people due process. We're not denying them access to the justice system. We're trying to treat people as humanely as we possibly can. But the fact of the matter is, I don't care if it was just 1 in the last 10 years, it would have been 1 too many if it were my daughter or my son. I yield back. I recognize Mr. Grothman for 2 minutes.
We don't even need 2 minutes. I just wanted to do a follow-up with Chief Martin. I'd like to thank you for being here today. I see Congressman Connolly had left. I just didn't want to respond a little to his comment. I thought it was completely out of line. I think the implication was completely unwarranted without anything to back it up. I appreciate what you're saying, and I think we see both from Representative Connolly and former Chief Burbank kind of the mentality that we've got to get over in this country if we're going to save our country, because we're going to lose our country unless we begin to take these immigration laws seriously. And we have too many people thinking of any ridiculous pretext under the world not to do the obvious. And we've seen that here today, but I just would like to thank Chief Martin and thank all the other law enforcement officers around the country who I think are doing a tremendous job. I think it's unfortunate so many people want to disparage them. That's all.
I recognize the ranking member for a closing statement.
Again, I want to thank all of you for being here. And I think when we look at this total problem, we have to understand that there's a lot of pain, and rightfully so. And at the same time, when our nation was put together, the Founding Fathers tried to create all kind of balances so that we keep our people safe, make sure that there's equal protection under the law, and a true sense of justice. And sometimes these things seem to kind of collide. But I am convinced that we can do better. I think, and I think that, I mean, as I heard Director Sedania talk, she was clear that there's some things that we need to do, we as the members of Congress need to do, perhaps in looking at the code and figuring out things that, ways we can help them be more effective and efficient in what they do. No system, unfortunately, is perfect. None. I practiced law for many years, and I saw a lot of things that will go with me in a negative way until I die. But I think what we have to do as Americans is constantly reach for that more perfect union. Whether we'll ever get there, I don't know, but we need to be striving for it every day. And there's so many people who, and I want us to always be careful, though, and I go back to my opening statement, that we don't just label a group of people, and because I think that's very dangerous, too. Because when we turn against each other, then I think it's almost impossible for us to truly pursue that more perfect union. So that means that we've got to kind of try to address the issues that come out of this. We've got to look at ICE and make sure that ICE is doing what it's supposed to do, and all the other agencies. And where there are places that need to be strengthened, we need to do that. But in the end, we want to try to make sure to all of you that these kind of things don't happen again. But we've got to, and again, we may only be able to minimize the possibility. Because, Chief, as you know, things happen. People, even when you have the laws, people find a way to get around them. You know that, because I know you've been in this business long enough. And so, but again, your testimony has been very helpful to all of us. And I really, from the depths of my heart, I thank you. I really do. And I think somebody said it a little bit earlier. You know, you never get over the loss. You don't. You just learn to live with it. You learn to live with it. And you're learning to live with it because it's still new. The idea that you're able to do what you're doing, to come here and speak for your loved ones. And like you said, Ms. Eileen, you know, I think you said something to the effect that I don't want to see her having died in vain. You want to see something come out of this to help somebody else. And that's one of the greatest ways you can deal with it. And we really appreciate it. And you came to the right place.
Well, this is where I wanted to be.
Well, we're glad you came. But all of you, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank all of our witnesses for their appearance here today. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.